Oh, you know. Whew. Just finished a shift in the fucking sweltering sun, doing reading, but hey, you know, feels good to stay active and, yeah, contribute to a community project that is bringing food to the masses. It's a good thing. Now, I saw a video the other day. It was Bill Maher's Club Random. Now, let me tell you, I watched like a couple minutes of some of the podcast, and like, oh my god, just the lighting, the camera angles and everything, like it looks worse than Joe Rogan's like, you know, alien intestinal tract fucking like studio that he initially had when he started the Spotify deal, which looks atrocious, but everyone was like too much of a simp for Rogan to say anything about it on his show. Yeah, like, and it also is like, dude, it's like this dank dungeon. This doesn't look like a club. This looks like a place you like drag your fucking victims kicking and screaming. Like, so he was like, I usually can't stand watching more than a couple minutes, and I used to like him, but then I found out that, like, you know, he was like a heavy like Andrew Wakefield vaccines cause autism proponent back in the day, which, you know, like, for the amount of times I've heard him go, oh, you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor, you can't talk on that or this. Well, that's exactly what he was doing. And if you haven't, watch the H-Bomber video, Vaccines, a Measured Response. This is pre-COVID, so anti-vaxxers, don't get your knickers in a fucking twist. If you do, I don't care. But because if it wasn't for vaccines, COVID probably would have killed me. Yeah, anyways, so, you know, Andrew Wakefield was this fucking just skeezy, slimy fucking snake of a man, called himself a fucking scientist, and like, he was basically hired by this lawyer who was representing a family that I think their kids had autism. They were really poor and the autism was very bad. They couldn't really deal with it, and so out of grief they sort of put this correlation between the mRNA, or what is it, measles, mumps, rubella, MMR vaccine, which like is, you know, it's like kind of like the same thing we would get as kids and fucking or as babies and then as kids in elementary school. But it was all 3 in 1. And so Andrew Wakefield came up with this ridiculous theory about how it's causing intestinal issues, and the intestinal issues like prevent proper like neurological development. So somehow that correlates to autism. Like this is how fucked Andrew Wakefield was. Like, he was going to like his kids' friends' birthday parties and paying them $5 each, or £5 each, whatever, for like samples of their blood. Like, what the fuck? And it turned out that it was all just because he wanted to, like, he wasn't saying that the compounds in the vaccine themselves were dangerous. It was just when you gave them all at once. So he wanted to patent a formula that no one would be able to afford. It'd be like $20,000 for each shot, and you'd have to get the MMR, so measles, mumps, rubella, separately, and pay up the fucking like wazoo for that shit. And Bill Maher was just like going on like, I think like Larry King and shit, and fucking like feeding into this guy's bullshit propaganda. And then Bill Maher has the audacity to be like, just get your fucking vaccine on real time, which, you know, is not, to me, that's not at all a controversial take, because I think one of the silver linings of COVID was watching how people were like, okay, I'm going to agree to sacrifice a lot of my creature comforts because of the good of vulnerable members of our society. And keep in mind, I'm one of those vulnerable members because I am immunocompromised. Like the first shot, which was the weakest out of the 3, the Pfizer, that shit got me so sick. But only for 42 hours, and that stopped. And then I got actual COVID like a year later, and it was bad, man. It was fucking bad, but I scraped through, I survived, and yeah, if it wasn't for those vaccines, I probably wouldn't have. So yeah, stick that in your pipe and smoke it, anti-vaxxers fucking telling me to, oh, just expose yourself to COVID, fucking, it's like, you know, herd immunity and all that shit. Anyways, I'm tangenting, but yeah, needless to say, Bill Maher's, he's a fucking hypocrite in the worst ways. He's a money-grubbing hypocrite, like he fucking would say that, just get your vaccine, just get your shot on real time, because he knew he was talking to a leftist audience, despite like him being really more of a conservative, or, oh, I'm sorry, classical liberal. I'm sorry, but that definition is like one of the most flimsiest fucking things you can say politically. Like that, anyone who says that, Sargon of God, any of those fucking, like, just complete, like, wet rag fucking douchebags. That's got ring to it, wet rag douchebags, yeah. That's exactly what I think of when I think of Sargon of Akkad or Bill Maher fucking talking about medicine and science like he knows what he's talking about. But then, yeah, he'd go and clip random and be like, yeah, fucking, this is such bullshit. It should be my choice to get a vaccine. And it's like, dude, so you're just telling the people what they wanted to hear then? You were just saying that because of ratings? Like, fuck off. But, yeah, he had this, I guess, porn star? I don't know. I watch porn, but I mean, I'm not like, I'll throw it on and be like, okay, I'll fucking just crank one out in the next 15 minutes. Like, I'm not picky. I don't go into huge rabbit holes unless I'm like coming down off cocaine or something. Then I get into the weird shit. But yeah, no, this chick Bella Thorn was on. First time I've ever heard of her. First time I've ever seen her. And like, I think she's like 22 or something, and I was like, I'm 28, and I was thinking like just with the way she spoke, and you know, she's obviously under a lot of stress and a lot of just like gross intimidation that was like really creepy from Bill Maher. Like he was getting all touchy-feely as she's like talking about being molested. And like she's like curling up into a ball and crying, like, and he's still like, fuck, like, everyone wants to fuck you. What is that like? Do you want, hey, I'm going to the airport out in blah 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 next week, would you be a doll? And like, like, that dude's what, fucking over 60 something? Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, like, so she was talking about how she's like, oh, weed changed my life. Like, I had super bad anxiety. And then, of course, Bill Maher being like, like, on real time, you see how much of an asshole he is in real life. Or not on real time, sorry, what is it, Club Random. This is the most, like, fucking, like, pseudo-zoomer fucking name for a podcast I've ever fucking heard. And like, when he's not like stroking off someone else's ego, like Woody Harrelson, who is in turn reciprocating, they're just kind of jerking each other off the entire time. Like he had like Jeff Ross on, and like, it's just like, you know, Jeff Ross talking about the Danny Boyle Sex Pistols fucking mini-series or whatever. And, you know, I'm admittedly like, I tried to be a fan of the Sex Pistols. I know a lot about them, but you know, like I can appreciate them on a cultural level, but that's about it. I do like bands like The Clash. Fucking, you know, I do like punk. I think, like, if you're into rock music, even classical rock in just about any capacity, you have to credit fucking punk rock, because it is so hugely influential. Like, where did the sudden use of power chords come from in the 80s? Basically, like, punk rock was what that was the cultural, I think more culturally conducive than anything else. You know, yeah, you could see, like, you know, those like gazillion bands that tried to imitate the Beatles. You know, they would use power chords and shit, but like it wasn't very common. But it's an easy way to play music, and a lot of punk is based around, like, fucking, I'm broke as fuck. I don't even know how to play. I'm just making this music as a sign of, like, me rebelling. And, like, I like shit like Bad Brains, man. You know, fucking, like, there's good punk rock out there. I just like, and I like going to punk rock shows, but, like, Bill immediately shuts it down, like, the Sex Pistols, man, fucking shitty lyrics, fucking, who cares? Like, they didn't even know how to play their instruments. And, like, Jeff Ross, like, that's the whole point, dude. Like, they still had this fucking huge influence, like, internationally. But, like, Sid Vicious had his bass unplugged the entire time because he couldn't play worth shit. He didn't know how to fucking play at all. It was just his stage presence. That was, like, the only reason they fucking hired him. But yeah, Bill Maher's like, you know what's good punk? Green Day. Oh, dude. Yeah, no, he's musically illiterate. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying I'm, like, the most musically literate person on the planet, but Jesus Christ, I stopped listening to Green Day after I was, like, 10, maybe? And got into real music. I think the only reason he even cited them was because, like, the lead singer came on Real Time once and they talked about how awesome weed was and how Green Day was, like, a reference to 420 or some shit. So yeah, easiest way to bypass Bill Maher's like pretenses of intellectual superiority is just to talk about weed. It's kind of like Joe Rogan. But anyways, getting back to Bella Thorn. So, like, before she even explains why she has anxiety and why weed helped, she's just like, what's with you kids and fucking being so stressed and anxious all the time? And before she can respond, he's just like, oh, it's all about, like, oh, picking out this dress with this shirt, like, going on social media and blah, 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 fucking blah, like, okay, so other than YouTube, I have Facebook and I never use it. I don't go on social media. I'm stressed. I'm anxious all the fucking time. Why? Because I've had a fairly traumatic life, and I have, like, daily trauma from the amount of, like, pain, like, physical pain, at least, like, the perception of physical pain, because it's mostly neurologic nerve pain. So, you know, it feels pretty fucking real, even if it's not actually the result of an injury. Although I do have some like, actual physical conditions like prostatitis. Now, from what I think I heard her say, I haven't looked her up. I don't care enough about OnlyFans fucking Deadpool fan porn or something like that. That's what she was kind of describing. Yeah, I don't care. And plus, she's like, I don't know. I've had the worst relationships in my life have been with white redheaded chicks. Call that bias, but it's kind of like based in trauma, because those women really fucked my life up, you know, like that's like my ex fucking, who was way older than me, the acid dealer who fucking normalized me to heroin use. Like, she was a fucking redheaded vixen, that one, and she ruined many lives. But this Bella Thorn, she's like a very nice person. She seems like someone I would get along with. Even though she does seem a little sensitive, that's fine. She was molested by, I think she said, a family member. Like, I don't blame her for being on guard. And she seems like she's a very compassionate person. Like, Bill Maher just made a joke that was like wrong place, wrong time, just like really not reading the vibes coming off her. Like, this joke about like, that was based around like, oh yeah, well, if people are getting their dicks chopped off to become transvestites, like, and other people need dicks, like, isn't there going to be like a dick shortage or something like that? Like, it's something stupid along those lines, like, which, you know, I like to consider myself a trans ally for the most part. You know, not that I'm completely devoid of criticisms, just for the overarching goals and ideals held by those communities. I still, you know, overwhelmingly support them and have been attracted to trans people multiple times before. I'm, you know, fairly asexual person myself, and someone who likes to, you know, identify with my animus, which is, you know, the female part of the male psyche. I think that's a healthy thing to do. And I remember I started doing that just because as a teenager, like, the women who I ended up dating would be like, I love that you're in touch with your feminine side. And so, like, it's interesting. It came out of a place of kind of selfishness. But like, ultimately, now I'm like, oh, well, I feel more in touch with myself as a whole. And I'm not, like, trying to sublimate characteristics of myself that may not be considered, like, you know, manly or whatever. But in any case, yeah, so he makes that joke and she gets really mad, and she's like she's saying she's offended, and like he's kind of just piss and gas on that fire. And she's talking about how she's known people who are trans and committed suicide and stuff like that, and like every remark that you can imagine is like the last possible thing you should say in response to those comments. He said, like, I know I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's like, there's some things that are just so disturbing and absurd that like the only thing you can do is just laugh. Yeah, so to answer the question, why does my generation and the younger generations have so much stress and anxiety? Well, hey, you know what? Because we were born into a world we never asked to be born into, just like older generations were. But here's the thing. We were born into a world where, you know, global warming was already like, you know, climate change is obvious. It's so fucking like you have to be like blind, deaf, and dumb to live in my city and say it's not a thing. We were born into the Patriot Act eras. And now we're experiencing on top of this, like, you know, hyper paranoid post-Patriot Act, post-Snowden leaks society. That's just like full of so much superficial bullshit, like social media. Like all this stuff combined with like the functionalist psychological definitions that I have come up with for why. And by the way, functionalism is a branch of psychology that deals with evolutionary programming, which, you know, if you've heard me before talk about pessimism, is something that is very fascinating to me. Like, we live in urban jungles walled off from nature and the rest of the world, and we're like, you know, products of classical conditioning. You know, like we were really the epitomes of incentive versus consequence-based development. And just going back to the functionalism for a second, I think when you're walled off from nature, like what happens is the stress and anxious responses that we as animals would ordinarily have and have had for millions of years, or well, about a million years, they just don't have an outlet when we don't have like regular threats on our lives. Like I remember when I was homeless and there were threats of death constantly looming, or sexual assault or anything like that. I was not worried about things that, you know, by Bill standards are superficial. You know, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, but I never think about like, you know, oh, I'm anxious because I didn't wear this shirt or that shirt. You know, like, it's just like for one, it's hugely assumptive leap to make. For two, it's also just like that much more because she's female. Like he was talking as though he's broadly speaking for Zoomers and millennials, but like, my God, like it felt like he was also directing those accusations at her, and he really fucking. This is like where his insecurity shows a lot. Like when he starts to make these superficial suppositions, like his insecurity about being an irrelevant boomer, like they really start to shine through. And it's like, dude, you are just making yourself look like an ass. For your own good, stop. Please stop. And like he was so rapey through the whole thing. Like, you know, he even like very subtly, as I said, propositioned her for sex, and like she was not having a good time, man. And like, yeah, I just don't get how he's like so arrogant that and this is the guy who did that whole real-time bit about stop worrying about people putting drugs in your kids' Halloween candy and put them in there yourself. Steve Jobs had a revolutionary experience on LSD. I filmed what was that shitty fucking forgettable like slapstick comedy cab movie that he was in way back in the day. I don't fucking know. I haven't watched it. It's got Mr. T in it. It's fucking looks stupid as fuck. Yeah, so anyways, he's like, I just want to ask it for that. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell, dude. But it's like, yeah, like how can you advocate for these things and be such an egotistical prick? And it's like, yes, this harkens back to what I've said a million times in my videos, that a lot of people who like consider themselves trippers or to have like had those like powerful psychedelic ferocious experiences in their lives, and then they're like, yeah, it's life changing, but I'm an atheist and fuck you, I know more than you. Like, shut the fuck up. Like if you've had a life changing experience in psychedelics, that should trickle into your day to day. Like, you know, I because I think of my my depression, my major depression, my major depressive disorder, treatment resistant, by the way. 9 out of 10 people that kill themselves. I just cannot fucking state how much this chemical deficiency has fucked up my life. Like, it's not even that I don't get psychosis from it. Some people do. You know, I just am very depressed all the time. And psychedelics did help that for a very short period of time. I had a few like borderline like, oh, this is a religious caliber, and then it'd be like 24 hours later I would have like reasoned my way back into objective reality, but taken with me, oh wow, like my maybe religious experiences like the ones had by the likes of William Blake and Walt Whitman, you know, people who infamously reported these like very, very fucking profound experiences without drugs. I was like thinking, oh fucking, I tapped into that. I finally tapped into that. I'm like, you know, I still reserve that world could be out there, but I end up reasoning that, well, I think what they're tapping into is their own minds. And I think just like, you know, the human brain is just this lockbox full of wonder and like just this like mind-blowingly complex just layers. Like, you know, how like, let me put it in contemporary internet terms, like the brain is a rabbit hole of enigmas. Quote the JFK movie. Man, it's a enigma wrapped in a riddle, it's a puzzle wrapped in an enigma, like those 3 words basically. But you know, they all apply. I mean, yes, they are synonymous, but it just, fuck, if I could only quote that verbatim, that would have worked a lot better. But I think you get the point I'm getting at. You know, those what seemed in the moment like DMT showing me how the paranormal works. Like, you know, I come out of that and like I made a video coming out of that talking about like how like I was gonna have to like really reevaluate how I viewed the universe. But then I was like, oh wait a second, like, you know, I've always had a fascination for you know, the more ethereal things in life. You know, the more, I don't know, intangible, elusive mysteries. I love that shit, man. I love that shit. Like, I don't like when conspiracy theories were a little more innocent. I read them as subconscious fiction. That's what I like to call it. I've explained why I call it that, but I won't get into it because I just wanted to make this point here. So yeah, like the thing is, our generations also have like a lot lower levels of attention rate. So like, you know, that carries over into the memory, and like when you're being like overstimulated on like such an excessive level that you like really can't process much of the information. Like, you know, I think it's interesting that both Timothy Leary and Terence McKenna were like, the internet is going to be the next mode of consciousness expansion. And I was like, I can see why. I can see why they thought that. Having all this information, like this Akashic records, basically, which, by the way, I think Edgar Cayce is a fucking fraud, but I mean, I could be wrong, I don't know. I feel like on high doses of psychedelics, I've ended up in places like the Akashic records, but you know, I put it this way, I don't leave with like, you know, fucking too many like ideas that completely transcend like all kind of fundamental like scientific consensus on the nature of reality, ontology, whatever you want to call it. Or I guess in scientific terms it'd be more so like the nature of the universe, which is also ontology, but that's philosophy for you. That's a philosophical term. I'm an educated guy. I just finished my last psychology class. Guess what? I don't think I'll ever be going back to university unless it's like a trades-based type of thing that like actually like promises me a job by the time I'm done. Yeah. Fuck that. Yeah, it's a good way to lose a lot of money for a lot of nothing, and really disenchanted me with philosophy and psychology. But hey, you know what? Whatever. There's another feather in my hat of, well, I did that. I gave it a try. I did a couple terms. Wasn't for me, at least not in that capacity. I'm not going to practice, you know, like schooling full time for 10 years so I can get a degree that is for all intents and purposes considered junk science by like most of the scientific community. yeah, that's just the way it goes. And there's a lot of psychologists out there who are fraudsters, unfortunately. Complete charlatans. People who practice without licenses. And it's like rampant. That's part of what disenchanted me with the notion so much. But yeah, so like there's a lot of shit like that. There's shit like, you know, the states and how it feels like they or Russia are going to end the world at any fucking moment. And like, we're like, Bill, you got us so wrong. You got us so wrong. We want to do something to change the world. We don't want to just fuck off and make money. Like, he had this whole really, like, just like repugnant, in my opinion, real time bit where it was like the new rules or whatever, where she said that Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, remember that whole thing, that whole rigmarole? They're like vloggers. Like, Bill just goes, like, he's basically bitching about how, like, they're like monetizing fucking off, and it's like, if you can, why not get paid to travel instead of fucking like working a 9 to 5? And it's like, dude, you work on fucking network television. There are people who work on network television who get paid to travel, and you watch them vicariously. Like, that's the nature of parasocial relationships. That's not fucking at all limited to younger generations. You are just jealous you weren't able to do that yourself. And as much as I think the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie thing was like overplayed in the news, I think it's still tragic. I think it was, you know, still a young woman who didn't have to die and a young man who threw his life away. Fucking tragic shit, man. I don't, like, it is. But I also live right by the Trail of Tears, where like it is like constant fucking just Native women disappearing along that trail hitchhiking, because, like, you know, no one can afford a car, and it's like it's a big fucking haul from like the closest city. Well, I think it actually covers a couple of it goes by a couple of cities, but I think most of the disappearances and the murders happen, which there have been many murders. A few people have been caught. It seems like it's become a playground for serial killers, this place, because they know they can like go there and fucking kill people and get away with it. It's disgusting. Our law enforcement, I think, could be you know, curbing that so much better. You know, just simply have an undercover officer and female officer, young, pretty, have her fucking do a sting. Someone tries to pull some weird shit, fucking you light them up and fucking nab the motherfucker. Like, it's that simple, goddammit. But like, it was, you know, again, most of my friends growing up Native. I empathize a lot with their struggles. I don't know what their struggles are like, but I empathize with them a lot. Because, you know, I hear about it, and I hear about family members and stuff that, you know, directly affected by this. And, you know, I see the big fat nothing that's happening, even in the wake of the residential school shit and everything. Like, my God, like, and this is what I'm talking about. There's, like, we are preceded by so much atrocity. Like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The closest thing to a stereotype that I ever actually entertain in a joking manner when I meet, like, a German person who's typically in my age range. I had a little fling with a German woman who's, oh God, she's drop dead gorgeous, and she was like maybe 5 years older than me. I was like 15, 16 maybe. Within the first 5 minutes of talking, they will apologize for the Holocaust, and I always ask them, do you like Rammstein? And they almost always say they hate Rammstein, they think that it doesn't reflect well on German culture, which I can get. But I think if they knew the story behind Rammstein, they would reconsider that answer a little bit. Because it's very interesting. Because they grew up on the wrong side of the fucking Berlin Wall. Anyways, and these German women will like, they'll apologize for the Holocaust, and keep in mind they're like my age, they're a little older, so maybe like in their early 30s. It's like, were you there? Was your grandfather a Gestapo or something? No. Okay. What the fuck are you apologizing for? Just, as a species, we should all be looking out against like potential genocide that could happen. And I also want to take just before I finish why like we have so much stress and anxiety. Like there's certainly a guilt complex similar to the like white girl white guilt complex, which like oh my god, so many of my mom's friends, like they're like that. They have a copy of that book by Robin DiAngelo or whatever, and it's something about their reactions, like crying and fucking like wanting to kiss the feet of like black people. Like it makes me think that there must be something in their family lineage, like maybe their great-great-grandparents owned slaves or something. So that's a little weird, but that's typically older generations who do that. Like the younger generations are like very, very like wanting to go out of their way to try to make minority groups no longer feel oppressed, and to like feel acknowledged, and to like maybe even get reparations or something, like so when Bill talks about us just fucking off and not doing anything, it's like, dude, it's like your generation was the one to exist while redlining was still a thing in the States. I'm not saying Bill himself is racist. I don't think he is. I think he's a conservative. Some people may say conservative synonymous with a Nazi, but I don't necessarily like to make that. I think that's a logical fallacy to say that. And I think that's a gross fucking generalization that, it's not a good way to try to start a discussion with someone who has like such opinions that very differ from yours immensely. And I'm also not like a liberal or a leftist. I like to say I'm a communist in theory, but theory and practice are two different things. I like roughly sympathize with anarcho-syndicalism, but like I've never seen real world applications of that except for like communal projects like the one I was helping out with today. So I don't know if that would like completely destroy society or not. I'm willing to make that concession. Like there's, I think with the revelations of stuff like residential schools, stuff like the persecution of trans people, like fucking Elon Musk just announced Ron DeSantis' run for president, which is scary, it's terrifying. Like if people were scared of, I don't think anyone was ever scared of Trump. They're scared of his legion of like sycophantic followers. But like I personally I think there's too much infighting within the right, so like they'll just self-cannibalize as they have a tendency to do. I think the left also does this as well, but I think it's more vicious on the right, but I don't know. Either way, regardless of politics, like I think most young people do care for fucking like other people who may not fucking look like them. And you know, like I can only speak for the way I was raised. Like I was, you know, taught to respect women and to respect everybody and to give people a chance before deeming them, you know, guilty of being an asshole. Like, you know, my dad is very much like, you know, if someone bullies you, you know, talk to them, see if you can't like find out that there's like something else going on. And if they just keep bullying you, kick the shit out of them. Like, you know, and that mentality led to a kind of violent series of recesses and lunch times on the schoolyard. But, you know, that was okay because I was like a kid and I was having fun, like, because we would just get knocked down, get up all bloody, and we'd keep scrapping. But, you know, I never, to my knowledge, experienced sexual assault as a child. I had no idea how fucked up that would be. I experienced, while I was homeless, a little bit older, some stuff that was pretty damn close. Yeah, it's stuff that I still feel like I can't really reconcile or make sense of. And so when you already have that stacked on top of all the other stress and anxiety that I've outlined, the reasons why these things tend to emanate from younger people, and also just like, you know, there's a real unwillingness from older generations to admit that, like, this is kind of ironic, this goes back to the whole like, oh, they're monetizing fucking off new rules bit. Like, it's like, Bill, your generation was the generation that fucked off. Like, you were the baby boomers. You were the guys who just like tune in, turn on, drop out. Just, you were doing it with LSD instead of iPhones. And like ultimately I'm fairly at peace with, you know, relatively at peace with the amount of issues I deal with, because I have like just developed a process of eliminating things that do cause me stress. One thing that, and I see this directly influence my friends who have mental illness of some capacity or another, you know, officially diagnosed mental illness. And that's another thing, is like, we are the generations who came up seeing neuropsychologists when we were like, you know, single digit ages, and being told we have ADD and we're like this. And, you know, I was told I was an addict for the rest of my life when I was 16. You know, these types of things, like, they make it very hard to find an identity of your own. You know, I was forcibly institutionalized against my will because I had no say in the matter since I was younger than 18. And like, I spent years of misdiagnosis, experiencing severe trauma in these very fucking brutal places that mostly housed like very violent ex-cons. And I wouldn't be able to tell any of this to Bill. I feel like he would just, like, he wouldn't even, he would interrupt before I'd even get to say anything, and then just go, yeah, you guys just whine. And it's like, dude, you know what? Considering all the shit I've been through, like, you know, I'm just happy I'm here and I haven't blown my fucking brains out, or like, you know, you know, I admittedly did try to commit suicide when I was misdiagnosed with Huntington's, but that's because I tried to get a euthanasia, like legal euthanasia done, if it was like 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt Huntington's. But it, yeah, I've said this before, it was a reaction to SSRIs that were being forced on me, that were giving me seizures. So yeah, when like, and like in Bill's whole like drugs in the candy bit, where he's like, give your kids LSD and mushrooms and not, but you know, you don't want it interacting with their Vyvanse and their Celexa and their Cymbalta, sorry. and blah 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 blah, you know, like Ritalin, fucking lists all the shit that like kids are on, and it's like, dude, do you think most kids made the decisions to be on these drugs, or was it the results of their parents, or just societal institutions around them telling them they're a certain way? Like, I don't think your generation had that. Your generation got to just like go along with the hippie movement and, you know, have like drug orgies while, you know, people were fighting for like civil rights and stuff. So it's like, dude, you're like, unless you're like Harlan Ellison and like actually walked with Martin Luther King, like, you know, with threat of violence constantly looming over you, like, shut the front door, seriously. Like, dude, you're like so, I hate to use this term, but tone deaf. And I don't mean tone deaf in like, oh, you're not hearing like racist dog whistles, like, which probably is included in what I'm about to describe. But by tone deaf, I mean he is tone deaf to other people. Like, it only takes one conversation with someone else, and he just starts antagonizing them. He starts like just being a real prick. Like, I'm not gonna lie, he seems like the worst person to hang out with. Like it's so weird. Like when he had Jeff Ross on, like he like built like these fucking big ass like joints and spliffs. Like, he says he can't roll, so I am assuming that he goes to dispensaries and he gets pre-rolls, which are usually fucking massive. But like, I mean, like, I can get pre-rolls for $4 that are like giant fucking, like, they look like those trees of fucking joints, but smoking one of those compared to like one of the joints I just smoked, it's nothing. It is fucking nothing. Yeah, like, fuck, where is I going with this? Blame the weed. No, I'm just kidding. I think like, yeah, fucking young. I mean, the thing is, I'm not gonna lie, I've had my share of frustration. Oh, that noise is adding to that share of frustration, but I had my share of frustration trying to have conversations with not so much Zoomers, but like the younger versions of Zoomers, like especially the little shits who live yeah, they're like, my god, these kids are like vaping on the bus and like, you know, like pulling their dicks out and just doing stupid shit. I had to get in their faces once, and they, oh boy, they look like they're gonna piss themselves. Anyways, like, I've had my fair share of frustration, but it's like, yeah, dude, like, I'm sure baby boomers and Generation X had the same thing, you know? It's like, okay, you guys are the preceding generation, and it appears you guys seem to relate more, and that you're able to, like, have, like, more fluid conversations, and, like, there seems to be this inherent level of respect that's a little bit higher for millennials than it is for Zoomers, when it comes to talking to Gen X, baby boomers, and then, you know, the silent generation or whatever, whoever is still around from that generation anyways. Like, I find Gen Z humor very hard to fucking, like, I don't, like, I get it, but it just isn't funny to me most of the time. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's random. Doesn't really say anything, but it's random. Okay, cool. It's weird. Cool. I've seen some great Gen Z humor though. My favorite is the Ted Cruz Zodiac Killer. There's a video on YouTube. Just search up Ted Cruz Zodiac Killer, and I think it's like the first, second video that comes up. There's one of my crows. What's up, buddy? I don't have any niblets on me. Sorry. Oh, I'll fill the water bowl for you. Fuck, crows are so thirsty. Like, you can see them just walking around with their beaks open. hyperventilating. Poor guys. That's why I make a point of feeding them every day and filling up water bowls around this area for them. Yeah, I mean, crows are good friends, and you know what? I feel bad that they, and this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about with the guilt of, stuff that really isn't on my shoulders, but is like, oh, well, I'm a human being, I'm a part of the world. So, like, I no matter what I do, I feel like, oh, it's never enough, because, like, how do you undo all the damage done by previous generations, right? And crows are like a very interesting example of creatures who, creatures is a kind of, like, that sounds innately pejorative, so I'm just going to call them birds. Very fucking smart birds, because they are very smart. Like, especially on a pneumatic level. They have good memory. They have very good memory. But, like, when I see them, for example, like eating trash or some shit, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, they're forced to urbanize because we infringed on their habitats and now they're eating garbage. Fuck. So I'm like, I'll go down under the garbages and I'll throw them some cat food and put out some water and be like, here, eat something that's not garbage. But it still doesn't feel like, oh, job well done, problem solved. It's like, no, I just helped a little thing here, a little thing there. It's like, as much as I'm not a fan of Eckhart Tolle, it's much like the Dark Night of the Soul, where it's like one person just like suddenly realizing fucking everything crazy that's fucked up about this world, and like also considering that you are one person, so can only do so much. Well, I don't think that's an excuse for not doing anything. It makes doing anything like harder to appreciate. But yeah, just getting back to like Gen Z kids. I've had some great conversations with Gen Z kids. I've also had some that just like we're not gelling. We're not like on the same page at all. And then not a belief system, like ideological sort of way, because like I'm largely in part due to psychedelics. I think this is a good thing, like fluid in my ideologies, like even the most fundamental ones I want to question constantly. Oh yeah, look at that, fucking 2 types of honey oil rolled in fucking diamonds, 2 types of hash, some fucking decent weed. I mean, it's $5 for 5 grams, so it's not the best weed in the world, but like, my god, it's pretty fucking good for that price. And also, I just use it really as a base for all the concentrates and shit. Like, I threw some CBD slab in it, which looks like crack. Like, it looks exactly like crack. But I just blend it up, so and it smokes. So hey, there you go. I don't have my roach clips, so I'm getting my fucking lips all like fucking gooey, but whatever. But yeah, there's like a communication barrier, I think, is the best way to describe that. Like, I feel like I hit a wall sometimes, and like it's like, yeah, we're not on the same wavelength. But like, as I said, baby boomers and Generation X, who are both very different. Like, I saw the difference in my friends' parents who are Gen Xers, my parents who are baby boomers, and then other parents who are baby boomers. Like, they're very, very different. Like most of the Gen X parents were like still partying, like they're 22. But, like also responsible. Like they were like, juggling full-time jobs, and they were restoring nice cars, and, like doing cool shit, like going ATVing, snowmobiling on ketamine, and like like fucking really into house music. I loved that like second summer of love, like when MDMA first came out and it was legal, and house music started becoming a thing. Like, you know, I fucking loved talking to those parents, like exponentially more than like talking to, or well, exponentially is probably the wrong term, comparatively more than talking to baby boomers. Not, but I mean, again, this is, it's based on the individual. I've also learned a lot from baby boomers, and you know, the humble baby boomers that are like, you know, willing to talk to you but not talk down to you. And it's like, I get it. You're older, you have more life experience, you're probably way smarter than me in many ways, and I could learn a lot from you. And I do want to learn a lot from you. I will try my best, but when you talk to me like I'm a fucking toddler, I'm gonna get a little fucking antsy, and I'm gonna express that like I'm starting to feel like, you know, I'm being patronized, because that's exactly what it is. So like, I think there's a intense, on top of everything else I've just described, these layers of stress and anxiety. Like, there are a couple more issues. Like, well, actually, there's a lot more issues, and it depends on the person. I can really only speak for myself, and just kind of like make like broad, like sweeping generalizations about our generations and the older generations. Because, you know, as only one can in the nature of these videos. I don't like speaking for other people because I'm not them. I think only other people should speak for themselves. Or I think only other people can actually efficaciously speak for themselves, even if they're like mentally ill or whatever. Like, you know, that they still have a perspective that is uniquely theirs, even if that perspective, like all perspectives, you know, according to something like pessimism, is, you know, just a product of programming, both biological and, you know, just social conditioning, parental rearing, and all that. You know, we could not even be individuals, but like, you know, it seems like we are. So like, I at least act like we are, even if I don't believe we are, because like each person does appear like immensely different from the person beside them. Even if those two people are best friends and share very common interests, they will have different things to say, different things worth listening to. And yeah, I would not say like that I blame all baby boomers for the state of the world. I would say I would blame like a few, like maybe like oil barons and shit like that, like the 1%ers of the world, because, you know, they're like sitting on money as like fucking, you know, we're going through like such bad recessions that like the government's trying to actually do Orwellian 1984 shit and like change like fucking the definition of the word inflation, or change the definition of the word recession, which is like legitimately some newspeak type shit. Yeah, so like there's a lot of like impending senses of like the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and because of, you know, the readily available access to information we have, like I remember the wild west days of Facebook, when it was like just scrolling down your newsfeed, you would see just like these videos of like cartels like sawing people's heads off and stuff, and it was surreal. Like, and then the Chelsea Manning stuff came out. You're seeing these fucked up drone strikes, and or I think they weren't drone strikes that were the ones that were the most controversial. I think they were like Apache fucking helicopters or whatever, or sorry, like the Black Hawk helicopters, where the guys are talking about how they think they've identified this target, which was not actually a target. It was just like a bunch of people and like a family hanging out at a gas station. You've probably seen this video if you know anything about those leaks. I'm not gonna lie, it seems like a lot of my generations have forgot about Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, because now we just like after being told that like our governments are insanely duplicitously evil and like will violate your security under the pretense of like, you know, national security, like violate your privacy, like now we just seem to have collectively forgot about that and just like offer that information up voluntarily for the dopamine kick of likes or whatever on Instagram. There's a big one among my friends. You know, Facebook is the only one I use. Twitter I've never used, and I never ever plan to use, especially now that it's like a fucking another toy for Elon to run into the fucking ground. Like they're you know, I've done videos before listing, like, just off the top of my head, like dozens of different ways in which the world could end in like a second because of issues like climate change or like you know, I'm planning on making a video about the existential dreads people don't talk about, like, you know, like one would be like dementia, losing your mind, like which, by the way, I think is nature's way of telling us we're living too long. Now that is completely discounting cases of early onset Alzheimer's, because, you know, that is obviously not the case in people who are like 50 or 40 and have it, and usually early onset Alzheimer's is like in Terry Pratchett, it can be potentially fatal, whereas the dementia people tend to get when they're in their 80s, 90s. Like, I think all my grandparents started to get dementia to some degree because they all lived to be like 95, or like close to 95 anyways. Like, yeah, a long time to be on the planet, and I don't think human beings really need to live past 60. If you live a life that is like fulfilling and like rewarding and full of experiences that have cemented in you and people you shared them with, like a legacy that will carry your name on throughout the ages, then, you know, like, fine. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't mind dying at a younger age and just having a more meaningful life. It means less years I get to watch myself fall apart and, you know, watch my dick go limp, fucking, like, without, like, or well, with, like, you know, sexual prompts and, like, you know, like, shit like that. Like, I don't need that. And, you know, I think it's stuff like that that maybe is making Bill Maher a little insecure. Maybe he's having to take, you know, a little bit of, what do you call it, I've only ever taken it once because I had like a really bad fucking whiskey dick, Viagra, whiskey and coke dick, which is like the worst fucking combination of, like, my dick is a piece of putty in my fucking hand and this chick is like moaning and groaning in front of me, like fucking, I want your beautiful fucking dick in my beautiful fucking body, baby. Like, oh my god. Yeah, I think so, you know, naturally he's probably experiencing stuff like this, and he's also like as much as I really lament saying this name, because it's like, you know, Bloody Mary. I feel like if I say it 3 times, maybe Sam Hyde will show up at my house and rip my fucking skin off. Hassan, like, not so subtly hinted at how Bill Maher would go to these weird fucking Hollywood orgies, and he was like he tried to make it like vague, but he did a terrible job. He was like this HBO comedian who has a daytime talk show, and it's just like, who else would it be? I wonder, like, so yeah, you know, like, I think he was talking to like Ethan Klein or something in one of Ethan's latest shit shows, you know, in his series of attempts to try to fight his way out of this, you know, bag he's fucking, this bed that he's fucking made for himself that is just, yeah, I can see why the dude's depressed. He's trying to be all these things that, he doesn't need to be. It's like, dude, just be yourself. As corny as it sounds, just be yourself. But anyways, that's someone else. But yeah, no, anyways, yeah. Oh, you thirsty, buddy? You thirsty? Fucking, I wish I had a little dish or something. I'll bring you some water, buddy. Yeah, crows are so dehydrated, man. You can see their mouths open. They're just panting. Oh, there's a water fountain right there too. Oh, yes. Okay, well, my house is down the block. I can get a dish on. No. But yeah, to wrap this up, I think that Bill Maher is suffering from a case of the I'm old and irrelevant, so I'm going to mock those who make me feel irrelevant. Don't you do this. I think he's feeling a little out of touch, and it's like, dude, you got a fucking podcast, seems to be going pretty well. Why don't you just chill the fuck out? You're supposed to be this like stoner comic, man. Why don't you just get off your fucking pedestal? You know what? If you're showing psychedelic drugs, take 5 grams of mushrooms in the woods, and you'll come back like Jim Carrey did after that like Terrence McKenna role that he was rehearsing from or whatever. That, I mean, some people said that didn't happen, where Jim Carrey didn't go out in the forest and take a heroic dose of mushrooms to try to step into the shoes of Terrence McKenna for what I would have loved to see Jim Carrey play Terrence McKenna, by the way. I would have loved to fucking see that. But like all the PR firms, stuff like that, like, no. He didn't do that. But the thing is, he did kind of like change very like overnight from this like very shallow putting on faces for the press, for his comedy shows, like, oh, if Goofy goes and I can make all these like crazy voices, and like, he obviously after he had his revelation, maybe it was through just meditation, I have no idea. I just read that he might have done a heroic dose of mushrooms in the forest, which, yeah, let me tell you, if you are, like, I can only imagine what it'd be like for a celebrity, but if you're someone who is, like, deeply, like, and I'm using this term more so for Jim Carrey more so for Bill Maher than people like Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey seems to change for the better. Even though he seems a little kooky, he's always been a little kooky, okay? Kooky is fine, as long as it just stays kooky, it doesn't harm anyone. But like rotten on the inside, because their self is just it's a reflection of what qualities the public wants to see, what qualities they think the public wants to see. The dangers of parasocial relationships. This is a great example of when it rears its ugly head. And that, I think, is another thing that stresses people out, is young people so isolated, so alienated, because parasocial relationships have this palpable quality they've never had before, where you feel like you're literally like someone's talking right into a camera, and it seems like you're getting this like personal look into their lives, and it's almost like, oh, I can relate to them. They feel like a friend, but they're not actually there in front of you. They're not talking to you because they want to. They're just doing something for money. Like maybe they're they're doing it for passion too. But a lot of times, that just, as it does with people on television in Hollywood, whatever, money, power, creeps absolutely. That closeness in the parasocial relationship that wasn't available when it was like the Dick Cavett show and Firing Line with William Buckley Jr. It's not the same thing. So that leads to a sense of isolation, alienation, and also anyone with social media does that themselves to some extent. When I'm active on Facebook, I am putting out a person I want people to see. Is that person me? Well, it's an abstraction of the me that I want them to see. Green eggs and ham. Yes, I am, Sam. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So going to Jim Carrey, I think he, wrote those or otherwise, because he talked at the Transcendental Meditation thing, someone put the title as Jim Carrey talks about DMT or some shit like that, which he never mentions once. He just talks about having this extremely pivotal experience in his life that just made him reconsider everything and see the universe for how it, quote unquote, truly is. Which I know in his case doesn't seem like all that bad of a thing. And he's become this artist. He's embraced his many, many talents, and I say, fucking more power to you, buddy. I appreciate that honesty. So, Bill, you've had this dude on your show before. Why don't you follow his lead? Do 5 dried grams of penis envy mushrooms in the forest by yourself, and then come back and try your podcast again. Maybe people would be able to listen to it, because it wouldn't be just this obnoxious condescending attitude towards everyone but yourself, and this unwillingness to take criticism on any level without being a little bitch about it. And just the way he talks to his friends, like Jeff Ross, at first, fucking Jeff Ross is there, they're talking about how they're going to Hawaii, and as the podcast goes on, Jeff Ross is I'm surprised how quiet he was throughout all this, because he's the guy who's the roast master at those comedy roasts where he was just tearing into people. He was the roast master general or whatever. So to hear him just get constantly just insulted by Bill Maher, this dude who's supposed to be his friend, and not saying much in response, was dude, come on. He's not your boss, what are you doing? But anyways, Bill fucking lit a fucking massive joint he always does, and Jeff is is that weed? And Bill, for some reason, is I don't know if he's he lives in California. It's been legal there for a long fucking time. I don't know why he's saying this, but he says this show broadcasts in all states, and weed isn't legal in all states, so this is just a closed cigarette. And he's oh, I see. Doesn't question why he's saying that and how stupid it is. Dude, you don't take it from me. I'm the guy who smokes DMT on camera. That's what I'm known for. Not that I'm even well known, but that's my claim to fame. Fucking seriously, it's kind of sad in a way. I didn't mean for that to be my claim to fame. But I will admit that I figured that would not only be a way to teach people how to do this properly and not waste hundreds of dollars to break through on DMT, trying to figure out how to do it like I did, but also to do it safely. And there's a selfish motivation too, because I knew that doing heavy-duty substances like that on camera would be clickbait. I did know that, and that like, I hold some regret over that. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it clearly shows what I kind of brought on myself by making this sort of vlog style channel that is like largely based around psychedelics. I brought this on myself largely. I have no one to blame but me, but like, you know, that's another thing. We are like so constantly fucking shat on all the time by society. Like, you know, you only have to take transit a couple of times until you hear like some drunk construction workers like in their 50s talking about how stupid millennials and zoomers are, and it's just like, should I fucking brawl with these two dudes right now, or should I just fucking keep my cool? Like, you know, it's between a rock and a hard place kind of thing. So yeah, like, add that to the fucking pyre of shit that like is incinerating young people's self-esteem. Take that into consideration. And also, like, you know, despite all that being said about young people and anxiety and selfishness, I think, and voluntarily offering up information on social media, which I think are valid criticisms, I think young people are also more honest, more forthcoming about who they are than a lot of previous generations. They're not putting on masks as much as other generations, and yeah, maybe you could say it's just because they don't have the attention to hold one mask for too long. But even if that's the case, who cares what the source is? The product is that a lot of people are unabashedly themselves, and I know that pisses a lot of people off, and has created this whole like notion of a culture war that is like such a nothing burger that has been like made into the issue of fucking a lifetime, and it's unfortunate, but you know, that's a whole fucking Pandora's box, so I'm not gonna open it. I'll let Bill keep fucking dancing on the ashes of his fucking legacy, and yeah, like, let him keep talking shit, and yeah, once he has completely fucking alienated everyone around him, yeah, enjoy the taste of that humble pie, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's a little bit infuriating to me, because I, as a kid growing up, was a big fan of Real Time. I was a big fan of the documentary Religulous. I watch that shit now and I cringe a little bit. Religulous was like, I am someone who's like a very hardcore anti-theist. Like, I think religion is one of the worst things for the planet. You know, again, not painting all religious people with a broad brush, but, you know, like, when you have massive systematic institutions who've carried out some of the worst crimes in recent history, you know, like the Vatican did, like, just look into the shit they did during World War II, and like what they did during the Spanish Civil War and all that, like, you know, telling millions of people in Africa that AIDS is bad but condoms are worse. Like, I'm against that shit. You know, I'm very critical of how, like, Netanyahu and Israel fucking persecutes Palestinians, but I'm also fucking critical of Palestinian terrorism, retaliatory terrorism that, you know, may have been directed at Israelis but had impacts on multiple people. You know, like, I evoke the example of the Munich Olympics a lot with this, but it's a great example of how both sides just did the wrong thing. But I am more, I guess, primed to empathize with the Palestinians, because they know nothing but shelling day in, day out, just death, and being told that, like, martyrdom is a beautiful thing. Like, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but it's not something that I can say I truly understand. And that's another thing I appreciate about young people, is that, like, you know, like, we'll make criticisms like that that, you know, people like Bill will be like, oh, well, you're saying you could be wrong, so that's like a surface level criticism. And it's like, no, that's reserving the fact that there's always like room for error and a judgment, and it's good to question your own judgments and to be open to changing your mind on these judgments. Like, do I think the state of Israel is a bad thing? No. Like, even the Jewish people who live there now are becoming pissed off at Netanyahu and creating like serious, like almost Civil War style, like Protestants versus Catholics, Northern Ireland, like duking it out against each other. You know, the like people who are doing the compulsory military sentences. I think you have to do 2 years in the Israeli military or whatever if you're an inhabitant, unless you're like exempt for disability purposes. You know, correct me if I'm wrong there. A lot of countries do this, and it actually does seem to have like a good effect on people. Like it teaches people some discipline, and like it they do it at a time in their lives when, you know, like they need role models. Like you know, Finland is a good example of this. I believe is it Sweden or Switzerland? I think it's Switzerland that does it. They may have discontinued that a little while ago, but like up until recently, all these countries that are infamously neutral during stuff like World War II, where almost no country except for countries like Spain that were so inflamed by their own infighting that they didn't have the resources to like fight a world war. They had the resources to fight the war going on within their own country. Like it's that says something about the depths of turmoil. But I mean, in any case, like I see these like neutral countries doing it, and it's like a good thing. And then I see like, you know, the Israeli army like fucking like shooting down an 11-year-old girl who just watched their family get like murdered and is like in fear of their lives, charging someone with a knife, and the soldiers just shoot them. And it's like, you could have used some sort of de-escalation tactic there. It's like, they're 11, kick them in the fucking face. Just, you don't have to blow their head off. Like, come on. But anyways, I don't want to fucking get into that because, you know, like, that's another thing. Everything is so damn divisive that, you know, when you're a white dude like me who comes from a privileged family, it doesn't matter what my life is like. Yeah, like, you have to be very careful about what you say, and that feeling of being in a glass box of opinion that's another log on the fire. And, you know, all this stuff that I described just scorches someone's sense of security and self-esteem. So, yeah, that's why people like Bill Maher should shut the fuck up.